2007, the Almighty gave me an incredible opportunity to do something that is a little bit unique. In 2007, I donated my kidney to a woman I had never met before. And I'm here to tell you, it was the greatest experience of my life. There's no comparison. I want to explain to you what happened, what I learned from it, how did it all come about, and hopefully maybe some of the lessons that I learned and how it impacted my life, maybe you can incorporate into your own. How did it all begin? Well, I was living in Denver, Colorado at the time, and my husband told me that he was learning with a guy, sort of an older gentleman, and he said, "Do you notice he wears a beeper?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, he does." And he said, "That's because he's expecting a kidney. He's waiting for a kidney. He needs a kidney transplant." I'm like, oh my gosh. So that night I went on to Rabbi Google, and I Googled kidney transplant, kidney donation, kidney foundation. I really just wanted to know what he was going through. So I have to tell you, before I started this adventure, I didn't even know where my kidneys were. I didn't know what they did. I knew I had kidneys in there somewhere, and I know they did something. So you have 2 kidneys, and they're in your back, just on the lower part of your back. They're 2 4-ounce kidneys, and what are they? They're filters. They are, you take things into your body, they filter anything bad out, and make sure that anything good stays in. So if your kidneys are not working, the bad stuff stays in, and you get sicker and sicker and sicker until you die. So I have to tell you, some of these websites are very compelling and very heartfelt. There are people on some of these sites who are saying, "Save me, save my daughter, save my brother, save my mother." And in the Kidney Foundation, it talked about, on the website, it talked about who's a good candidate to donate their kidney, to be a kidney donor. And I'm just reading, and it's saying, oh, you have to be healthy, and you can't have kidney disease in your family, and you can't have had diabetes, and I'm going down going, check, 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 check. Oh my gosh, I could do this. And another thing was, it said that, you have to know that to match people up, in the kidney world, it's very blood-driven. It depends on your blood type. Now, I don't know if you know your blood type. A lot of people don't. But you should give blood, and you should find out your blood type. I'm O positive. So an O positive is a universal donor. That means I can give to any blood type. I can only receive from an O. Anybody out there is an AB? ABs are universal receivers. They can receive from any blood type, but they can only give to an AB. Every other blood type, they can receive from their blood type or an O, and they can only give to their blood type. That's how it works. So I'm O positive. I'm a universal giver. I can give to any blood type. So I'm going check, 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 check. Oh my gosh. So I went to him and his wife, and I said, maybe I can give you my kidney. So obviously he was very touched, and we went to their surgical team, his doctor took one look at me and said no. Because he was a big man, and I wasn't a big woman, and they were concerned that perhaps my kidney would not sustain his body. And they wouldn't even check me. They wouldn't even test for it. We appealed, no. Done. A year later, we moved to Washington, D.C. area. 6 months in, I get a random email that says, 4-year-old Jewish boy needs a kidney. So I wrote in, and I wrote back, and I said, actually I looked into this last year. I think I'm a very good candidate to donate my kidney. A couple of days later, I get back from them. Actually, he's too sick for a surgery right now, but would you be willing to donate to somebody else? And that was my first moral dilemma. Men who we know and love, take my kidney. 4-year-old Jewish boy, take my kidney. For somebody I don't know? And then I thought, somebody knows them. Just because I don't know them? This is somebody's mother, somebody's friend, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter. And I wrote back and I said, yes, I'd be willing to be tested. And I didn't tell my husband. Now, of course, I told him later, but I thought, why bring up something that's going to end up to be nothing? Why just make a deal out of it? They sent me from the Montefiore Hospital Kidney Donation Clinic. They sent me forms, and I had to fill out a lot of medical history, and I faxed it back to them. A couple weeks later, they wrote to me and said, you've been accepted as a possible kidney donor. And now you have to have medical tests. And they want me to be tested from head to toe. And most of the tests, they wanted to happen in New York. I'm living in DC, and because they only trusted their clinic. So now I have to tell my husband. So I waited one night till he was in a very good mood, and I said, Yaakov, can we talk about something completely different? And he said, yes. So I told him what I was thinking of doing. Now I want you to appreciate what a great man my husband is. He said, I saw the papers on your desk. I was waiting for you to talk to me. Now I have to tell you, if it was reversed and he was doing this, I would not wait. I'd be like, well, what are you doing? But he's a very special person. But I have to tell you, he didn't stand up and go, yeah, go ahead and do it. He says, hold on, we have 5 children, what are the risks, etc. He says, we have to ask our rabbi, I want to talk to a doctor. I go, great, ask our rabbi, talk to a doctor. In the meantime, I started doing the medical tests and continuing. Why? Because he didn't say no. You know, ladies, if your husband doesn't say no, you just keep going until you hear a no. He didn't say no, but he didn't say yes, so I just kept going. So every time I got an offer to speak in New York, during those next few months, I always said yes. That I would show up, and I would speak, and I would go to the Bronx, test, and go back. And you remember those medical tests that at a certain age you should do, but you put off? Well, they do those tests. And they actually told me that one time they were testing somebody, and they found something wrong with them. And they couldn't donate their kidney because something was wrong, but they ended up saving their own life because they wanted to save somebody else's. All right, so months go by, and there was a point where I had to do like sort of 3 days of tests in a row. So on the way back, I'm the director of the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project. We have something, it's almost like a Taglit Imahot. We bring thousands of women from all over the world to Israel. So I was on a trip, and on the way back, I had a stopover. And I had convinced my friend, Rebecca, who was a single woman at the time, to stay with me for these tests on the way back. And I remember like landing in New York, and it was a crazy day. It was a storm, and a freak tornado had touched down in Brooklyn, and it was just like really, traffic was impossible. We had just flown overseas, and we were exhausted and hot. It was August and muggy. And I remember waiting for an hour and a half for the driver of our car service to come. And it took 4.5 hours in stop and go, heavy, hot traffic to get from JFK to the Bronx. At one point, I was looking at Rebecca. She looked green. She was like hanging over, like we're going over a bridge, and she's hanging out the window, and it looked like she was going to be sick. And I said, Rebecca, you make me sick. Like, I can't even look at you. We finally get to the hospital. We walk in. They were waiting for me, and I told them I was delayed. They said, everybody's delayed today. I walk in. They took one look at Rebecca, and they said, are you the recipient? We laughed and we said, no, she's my friend. So they took her to a local apartment that they use for cases like this, and they took me right into the test because I was late. Test all day long, passing the test, yay. Afterwards I went, and I have to tell you, before this, when I first told Rebecca about this, she was completely against it. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Because when I floated this out to anybody, people were negative. Why are you taking this risk? And a lot of it was misconceptions that they had, because you can live a perfectly normal, healthy life with one kidney. At one point, the driver who was driving us to the hospital, he was like, he said, he's Indian, he says, I'm pulling over, I'm going home, I'm not doing this anymore. So I had to keep him going. So I said, I'm about to donate my kidney to a woman I've never met before. And he's like, really? So he kept going. And he asked me, well, how can you give this woman your kidney? You need your kidney. I said, no, you have 2 kidneys, but you can live a perfectly normal, healthy life with one. So he asked me the question that I asked Dr. Greenstein, who's the head physician at this kidney donor clinic. He happens to be a Shomer Shabbat Jew. I asked him the same question. If you can live a perfectly normal, healthy life with one kidney, why would God give you 2? He said, 1 to keep and 1 to give away. So afterwards, when I was finished with the test, I went back to the apartment hotel, and there was Rebecca. She had showered, she had rested, she looked like a different person. I said, Rebecca, you know if you needed a kidney, because they thought she was the recipient. I said, if you needed a kidney, you know I would give you my kidney. She goes, I know. I go, then how can I not give it to this woman just because I've never met her? She goes, okay, I'm in. So now she was in, and finally my husband, who had been dragging his feet, talked to our rabbi, and our rabbi told him this is a very big mitzvah, support Lori 100%. So my husband's in, Rebecca's in. 2 weeks before the surgery, I was back home, and I got a call. And it was from the clinic, and they said, we just told the woman that she's about to have her surgery, because we finally picked a date in mid-December. She's about to have we found a donor for her, and she's going to, there were many people I was tested for. She was the best candidate that we matched. So I said to her, they told her, and I said, well, what was her reaction? They said she was so emotional, she couldn't believe it. And they said, she wants to talk to you. Do you want to talk to her? And I said, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Why did I have mixed feelings? I had mixed feelings. My husband said, don't talk to her. Why? He goes, what if she's not nice? Just because she's a Jewish woman who needs a kidney doesn't mean she's a nice person. What if she's judgmental? What if she's a smoker? You're still going to give your kidney to her, but it's going to take away a little bit of the pleasure. But I felt deeply that I needed more of an emotional connection to this woman to get me through the next few weeks. So I said to them, yes, I do want to speak to her. Give her my number. If she doesn't want to talk to me, she doesn't have to. But if she wants to talk to me, I want to talk to her. So I kept my phone on all the time, even when I was teaching. Every time it rang, my heart leapt. Maybe it's her, and it wasn't. It was kind of like waiting for that guy in high school to call. It was a Wednesday night. I was walking in to teach an 8 o'clock class. And just before I walked in, my phone rang, and without looking, I picked it up, and it was her. And I said, oh my gosh, I so want to talk to you, but I'm about to go in to teach a class. Can you please call me in 1 hour? She goes, of course. So during the class, I was so distracted. At the end of the class, usually the women want to ask me questions. I was like, class is over, see you next week, bye. Went into my office, and she called. And we talked for 4 hours. We wanted to know everything about each other. She told me her story. She was my age, 7 children. The year before, she was diagnosed. She just went in for routine tests to get her hernia taken care of, and the test came back, and they said, something's wrong with you. She didn't even know anything was wrong, because by the time you find out, it's too late. And they said the only cure is a transplant. And everybody was around her was tested, and no one passed the test. No one matched her, except for her sister. But her sister had had some kidney problems earlier, and they didn't want to do the surgery. They finally went around to different hospitals until they found one that would do the surgery. And 3 days before the surgery, they canceled the surgery. Why? Because in one of the tasks, they test you to the last minute, that her sister was spilling protein into her urine. And unless there's a 1,000% chance this is going to be successful, they won't do it. And they canceled the surgery. She told me, Lori, when they canceled the surgery, she says, I was devastated. My sister was inconsolable, and my children, there are no words. And then she got the call about me. So I went to New York for the surgery. I decided to go with Rebecca. The plan was my husband was going to come, and then we'd have the surgery, and he was going to go back and spend Shabbat with the kids. But I have to tell you, I love my husband, but there's a reason he became a rabbi and not a doctor, okay? He is not good with blood. He is not good with these things. And if I cut my finger and ask for a Band-Aid, all the blood drains from his face. He looks like he's going to faint, and I'm thinking, like, I'm going to bring this guy with me? Like, this is not a good plan. So I asked Rebecca if she would come, and she said yes. So I told my husband, maybe you should stay with the kids and Rebecca will come with me. And he's like, oh, really? Oh, thank you so much. So on my way to New York, I got a call, and it was her. And she said, we'd love to meet you, my husband and I. They live in Muncie, New York. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, I would love to go. And I remember Rebecca going like, are you going to wear that? It was like a first date. So Rebecca and I both went. We met them. It was amazing. She's a very special person. You can imagine how emotional it was to meet her. Her husband kept trying to thank me, and he was crying. I'm like, you don't have to thank me. It's fine, fine, fine. So she showed me pictures of wedding albums, marrying off her kids. And I remember at one point she said, like I said to her, like, here's your daughter walking down the aisle. She married off 2 kids since she had been diagnosed. And very few people knew that she was sick. And I said, what were you thinking as she was walking down the aisle? She says, I was thinking, if I don't make it, she'll be okay. I just wanted to live. She's married a good guy. I just wanted to live to marry off my last 2 kids. Okay, so then there was test, and the surgery was on a Thursday. On Wednesday morning, I woke up and I said to Rebecca, I'm nervous. She goes, okay, we're going into the city. We're going to distract you. To really distract me, we picked up my daughter, who was going to college there, and we took her and her friends out for dinner. On the way, I got a call, and it was her, the woman. I want you to appreciate how special this woman is. I said, hi, how you doing? How you feeling? Because she's being tested also. And she goes, Lori, I'm calling to tell you You don't have to do this. What? She goes, you have 5 children, you have responsibilities in the Jewish world. It's okay, I'm going to be okay, I promise you. You don't have to do it. I want to tell you, if this was reversed, I'd be at home praying, don't change your mind, don't change your mind, don't change your mind. I would not be giving somebody a free pass out. I said, it's unbelievable you're saying this, but you're going to see me tomorrow morning at 6 a.m., you can count on me. So then we go for dinner, and halfway through dinner, I get a call, and it's her son. He's a young adult, and I excused myself from the table, and he said, I'm calling you to thank you for saving our mommy's life. We love our mommy so much. Thank you. She didn't tell her kids until that moment, until after that phone call to give me an out. She didn't tell them about the surgery because they were so devastated before when it was canceled. The next morning, I was there at 6 a.m. with Rebecca and my daughter. They took me first, they prepped me, and emotional with my husband, and I'm about to go into the surgery, and I remember people asked me, like, was there ever a time you thought of backing out? And there was one moment. I walk in, I thought they were going to wheel me in. I'm just walking in with the nurse, and we get to this room that's sort of a semi-sterile room before you go into the actual operating room. She puts her hand on the operating door, she goes, okay, are you ready? I go, hold on. I said, I have to say a prayer. And she's like, okay. So I said the Shema, because I knew that I had to say the Shema before they put me under, because it's supposed to be the last thing that you say at night and the last thing you say before you die. And I was afraid I'm going to get in there, I'm going to forget. So I said the Shema, and the essence of prayer is, what do you want and why do you want it? What do I want? I want to live, and I want her to live. And the question was, why? What was I going to do with my life? I made my deal with God. I said, fine, I'm ready. She opens it up, I walk in, and I freaked out. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this. Okay, I thought there was going to be a doctor, an anesthesiologist, like, a couple nurses. There must have been 15 people in the room. They're running around, it's surgical masks, it's this concave mirrors, it's very cold out, it's very cold inside, but to keep it sterile. And there's this flat steel table with straps on it that looks like it's supposed to be an autopsy, and I'm supposed to get on that table, and I froze. And I said to myself, Lori, what are you doing? And I closed my eyes and I said to myself, just do it, just do it. I walked over, I laid on the table, and the next thing I knew I was in recovery. I have no memory of the surgery whatsoever. Dr. Greenstein came in and said to me, Lori, you got a great kidney there. She's pushing up a storm. It was miraculous. It's like a car that didn't work and you put a carburetor in and it goes. The measure of your kidneys is called your creatinine level, and if you have a high number, like a 10, you're in dialysis. And you want it to be low. She was a 9 going into surgery. She was just steps from dialysis, where you get sicker and sicker also. In 24 hours, she was a 1.4. It's miraculous. The recovery was just, whatever, it was a few days. I laid low for a couple of weeks, and 4 weeks later, I was speaking in Houston. 4 ounces lighter. 2 years later, she invited me to her daughter's wedding. Of course I went to her daughter's wedding, and we always spoke every week, we became close. I went to her daughter's wedding. How do you think I felt at her daughter's wedding? I'm sitting there. She's under the chuppah with her daughter. There are no words to describe how I felt. After the ceremony, she leaves the chuppah, she runs into my arms crying, thanking me for letting her live to see this day. To see her dance with her daughter at her daughter's wedding, there's no words for the pleasure. What amount of money would I have traded for that moment? What material possession, what experience? It was priceless, if you only knew. The first time I spoke about this, it was, I remember she called me up, it was Erev Rosh Hashanah. It was like a year before I even spoke publicly about it. It was Erev Rosh Hashanah, and she called me up, she goes, Lori, I'm calling you to thank you for my life. 1 year ago, I was praying for my life. I said on Kol Nidrei night, going into Yom Kippur, I'm going to speak about our story publicly for the first time. Is there anything you want me to tell people there? There's going to be hundreds of people there. She goes, yes. Yes, Lori. When you tell them, please, from me, that when they look around and they see people in need, don't look away. Takers are happy people at the moment. But in the long run, givers are happy people. You may not give away your kidney, but be a giver. The pleasure, there are no words.